In case you haven't met me, I'm Holly Conrad Smith. I'm the US and Europe, Americas and Europe, I guess you could say, customer success manager here at Giraffe. And I'm really excited to share how to work with spatial data in Giraffe today. So let's get started. The There we go. So, the idea of today's webinar is to teach you what geospatial is, like what geospatial data is as it relates to Giraffe. We'll talk about the different file formats that work in Giraffe, how to upload those, and we'll even do a live exploration of how to find geospatial data that is useful for your projects. Both in Giraffe, we have hundreds and hundreds of data layers uploaded for the entire globe, but also just going to good old trusty Google and trying to find data that could be useful for your specific project. So in Giraffe, we call geospatial data layers, and it displays on the map as a visual representation of that data made out of either polygons or lines or points, and it's mapped based on its location on the Earth. Data can just be visual, so it might be just imagery, for instance, like satellite imagery, or even just sometimes sort of a beautiful map overlay, or it might have more information attached to those shapes, like in the case of a vector data format, where you might be able to click on a shape and see the information about that shape, say a parcel. A lot of the parcel data that governments make available, it'll have additional information on it, like perhaps what the zoning of that parcel is, if you're really lucky. Perhaps the ownership information, if it's hooked up with the tax assessor's office. Perhaps it might have information about the size or the type of buildings that are on that parcel. So all of that additional information is stored within those geospatial data sets as well. The really cool thing about Giraffe is that it's pretty easy to look at and combine and action all of these different data types without having to be a GIS wizard. There are definitely people in Giraffe who are GIS wizards, and they're doing things, they're taking things from Esri and processing it in QGIS and then doing crazy stuff in Giraffe with it. But you don't have to be that person to get the benefit of working with spatial data, because connecting it into Giraffe is pretty easy. So the different data formats that Giraffe works with currently are vector data formats like GeoJSON, shapefiles, KML, a DXF file from your AutoCAD or your Civil, or even a spreadsheet like a CSV. We also accept raster data formats like JPEG, PNG, and PDF, and we'll take a look at how we upload those in a little bit, but you basically upload the image and then resize it to be the correct size for your project. And then there's also APIs that you can connect to. And the advantage of connecting to an API versus uploading a static piece of information is that if anything gets updated in that data set, if you're connected to the API, you automatically get those updates in your project without you having to do anything. So really cool that we can connect into some of the most widely used API data sources for geospatial data. So we connect to Esri, map servers, feature servers, scene servers, even image servers occasionally. So if it's like satellite imagery on an image server, those work. And then WMS, as long as that link that you have for the WMS has get capabilities in it, you can get data from those too. And that's really common, especially in Europe with the Inspire Europe data. A lot of it is in that WMS format. And then the last type of API we connect to is Mapbox. And Giraffe's base map is actually built on Mapbox sort of as our foundation. They have really great mapping tools. So if you want to create a really customized map, right down to colors, label sizes, you can get really into the nitty gritty with Mapbox. You can then connect that into your Giraffe project and maybe really make a bespoke look for your projects. So all of those different data formats, everyone will have different reasons for using different formats, but in general, there's sort of a good, better, best kind of rating of the different types of data that you can get access to. So I would say a good data source is your raster, like your PDF or your JPEG, a DXF from your CAD file, or a CSV. The reason that I only gave those a good rating is the raster you're going to have to resize yourself. It's not automatically to scale. A DXF file, 99% of the time, the folks who are working in CAD are not geolocating their information. So you have to do some pre-processing work on that DXF file before you can successfully load it into Giraffe, because everything in Giraffe has to be geolocated. And then CSV is for really specific use cases, and I'll show you one of those. But it basically just places points at addresses. So it's really good for things like downloading comps from Zillow and just uploading those to see like what the pricing is like around your project. Or the example I'm going to do later is I'm going to upload all of the hospital locations in Philadelphia. So it's just a very particular use case. Better is map servers and scene servers, WMS, Mapbox, and KML. The Esri map server and scene server are great. They're still API. You'll still get that immediate data updates when the source data is updated. The reason I didn't give it a best rating is because you're not able to use our data table functionality on those in Giraffe. So we'll take a look at that, but it basically means you get all of the benefit of the visuals of that data on your map, and it still can be very informative, but you can't filter and style those API links like you can with an Esri feature server. Sort of the same deal with WMS. Mapbox I put under better because it sort of takes a little bit of know-how to get those Mapbox layers to look really beautiful. If you're a Mapbox wizard, it's awesome. If you're just learning it, it'll take a little bit before it's very useful to you. And KML is a little wishy-washy depending on how it exports from Google. It is a Google sort of proprietary format, so it sometimes it doesn't upload so well into other software. Some people find that it's missing data. But what it is really cool for is if you have sort of a Google Maps or excuse me, a Google Earth project and you want to convert that into Giraffe, you can export it and then bring that into Giraffe and then sort of start from there. And then the best data formats are your Esri feature server, your GeoJSON, and your shape files. Esri feature server is great again because it's an API, so you'll get all of those updates instantly if they're made to that data source. GeoJSON and shape are vector upload, so they're a file upload, so you won't get immediate updates at the data source. So you'll have to re-upload a new version of it if that data gets updated. However, all three of these formats you can use the Giraffe data table on. So you can filter, you can search through the data set to find items that meet your criteria. You can style them. So you can say, I want, all of my parcels to be colored by the zoning that's applied to that parcel. And then you can see all of the different types very easily. So all of those data formats are very data rich and also able to be filtered, styled, and sort of customized to your use case. So that's why I give those the best rating. However, as many of you have probably discovered, is the hardest part about data is actually finding it. It's quite easy to add it to Giraffe and use it in Giraffe once you have it, but going out into the world and finding that data that's useful to you sometimes can be a little bit of a struggle. And I have some good tips for how to find data. So the first thing that we're going to actually do is take a look in Giraffe. And this is actually the first time I've been able to run this webinar since we updated the Giraffe layer search. So this is really cool. I'm really happy about how the layer library search works now. It's much improved, I think. So if you're looking for something that might be useful to you, the first place I would always go is just clicking data layer in your Giraffe project. And that is going to take you to the Giraffe layer library. And the library is going to show you every spatial data set that you have access to from your account. It might be something you personally uploaded. It might be something that the Giraffe team uploaded, and you can see that source here in the list, what source of data is, like, who uploaded it. It might be from an admin in one of your workspaces who uploaded that data and then shared it with everyone. So there's a wealth of information already saved in that layer library. You can just sort of search through this by adding search terms. And the search term will actually search everything in the data set. So name, description, the group name, the tags, all of that is being queried with this search term. So it's pretty easy to find the information that you're looking for as long as it's somewhere in there. So previously, if you searched, it only searched the name. So if you searched LA for Los Angeles, you might not have found everything that you thought you should see because maybe the name actually said Los Angeles. But now you don't have that problem as much because it's also searching the description. Another new thing that has been added to the library is tags. And for the most part so far, folks have been using tags to tag a relevant location that maybe would make it easier to find that data set based on searching a location. However, you could also add any other tags to data you upload that might be useful to you. So maybe you add your company name as a tag, and then everyone in your company would know, okay, this is something that was specifically uploaded by my organization. Maybe you add a specific keyword that you're always looking for. So like maybe you're looking for infrastructure maps a lot and you just add that as a tag. Speaking of infrastructure, I'll just search that so we can see. So again, it's, I think, really, really helpful information now that you can just search through this and add anything that you might want to add. You can also filter by map location, so it'll try to show you things sorted to the top that sort of match your location on the map. There are some layers that are the layer boundary is the globe, so it'll show up regardless of where you are, which is unfortunate, but that's how that layer data set was formatted. But today I am in Philadelphia, so I'm going to add some Philadelphia data to my map. I'm just going to click on a few different things here. And after I've clicked on everything I want to add, all I have to do is exit that layer library. I can either click the X button or click outside of it, and it'll add all of those layers to my project. And you can see as soon as I added those layers to my project, it started rendering them on the map. Another thing that you can do with your layer palette is just add groupings, and that can help you sort of manage data visibility. So if I just grab this layer in sort of an empty spot and drag it on top of another one, I can give this layer group a name, and then I can turn all of those off at once. You can also adjust the visibility by just dragging the slider. If you want it off, you can drag it all the way to the side there. Or if you want it semi-visual, visible, you can just make it partially. So that's adding layers from the Giraffe layer library. But say maybe you didn't find actually what you were looking for in the Giraffe layer library. Maybe you're in an area that is sort of new ground for Giraffe, or maybe your city's data is very specific and you know exactly what you want. It's pretty easy to just go to Google and sort of find what you're looking for. One of my favorite things to do is to use a few different keywords. So typically when I am Googling for data, I will use keywords like the city name plus open data, or the city name plus GIS. So for instance, if I was looking for Philadelphia open data, I might search Philly open data, and most cities will have a data website or an open data website that has tons of really useful information. And often a lot of that is geospatial in nature. So I can click on planning and zoning here, and I can see all of the data that is relevant for that city that they've made available. I just clicked into one of the data sets, and I love how Philly's open data website is set up because it gives me all of the different types in a very easy to understand way. But every city is a little bit different in how they lay out their data. So you'll just have to get used to how your city's website is set up. But once you figure it out, you'll know exactly what you're looking for, and then you can just go straight there. I click on API here. All right, so they took me right into the deep end. I'm not going to open that up yet. Another one that you can search for is Philadelphia zoning GIS. If you add GIS to the search, you'll often find the actual ArcGIS website. And this is helpful if you want to see more information about that data set before you get to the API link. So let's see. If I go to the gallery, most ArcGIS homepages for cities look pretty much the same. They'll have a homepage, they might have some maps, but typically the gallery is what takes you to the whole list of layers that they have available. And then I can search for what I actually want. So I'll search for zoning. That is not what I want. So I'm gonna go into layers and feature layers. Interesting. This specific website does not have all of the links that are in the open data website, but we'll just use this one. So I am going to open up the information about this layer by clicking on the item and let's see, I might have to open, I'm trying to get to the home page about this, view details. Yes. So you will probably find websites that look like this pretty often when you're going around in folks' ArcGIS websites. And the link that you want for Giraffe is going to be down in the bottom right here. And it'll have a URL. And that URL is going to have the words feature server, map server, scene server, something like that will be at the end of the URL. And that is actually what you need. This is the API endpoint. So I can copy that, but you can also view that URL. And that takes you to the actual like API page, which this probably looks like nothing. It's like, this is a non-formatted, like very technical looking page. The good thing about it is you don't have to understand what's going on this page at all. You just need this URL. But don't be scared if you're searching in Google and you click on a link and it brings up something that looks like this. You've probably found what you want. Excuse me. So I'm going to just grab this as our first example and head back on over into Giraffe. And now I'm going to use that URL to add this feature server to my project. So to add new data to your project, you again are going to click that data layer button and it opens up the layer library. But you can see over here in the top right, we have this create new layer button. So I'm going to click that button. And then it has all of the different layer types here that you might want to add. Now, what we're adding here is an Esri map server or feature server. It is that Esri link. So I'm going to click on that. And it opens up this little applet here on the right-hand side. And all you have to do is paste that URL into that box. And then it's going to bring up the data from that layer for you. So I can see down here in the data table that I'm seeing all the information that's stored in this layer already. And I can then save that layer and it will be added to my project, and it will also be added to my layer library. So if I want to come back to this again in another project, I can add it from my layer library after I've added it once. So I'm going to drag this up to the top so that it is a little bit more visual. And then what's cool about this layer that we've just added is it is a vector layer. It is a feature server, so I can use that data table on it. So the data table is really useful because, like I mentioned, you can filter and sort it and sort of search for things that might be useful to you. So if I want to apply a filter here and I only want to see things that are owned by the Philly Water Department, I can filter that to just PWD. And then if I want to style, if I zoom out a little bit, we can start to see these elements. This is a stormwater data set. So we're just seeing all of the sort of stormwater inlet locations, just to give some context. So I can choose also to now change the color of this. So maybe I want these to be, you know, a little bit darker so it's easier to see. If I change that color, now we can see those. But I can also, if I don't want them all to be the same color, I can select a have it color by an information in the data set. So now I have it being colored by subtype. So each of these numbers is being assigned sort of a different nice blue color. Or maybe I want it colored by facility ID. And now I've got probably hundreds of these. It's probably the ID of the inlet, which is a little crazy. But you can imagine that being able to sort of style and color and filter your data to what is useful for your specific project or for your organization can be really powerful. So loving the data table. Again, the way you get to that is by clicking the three dots on the layer and doing open lens. We call this functionality lens. It's really just the data table. Don't get freaked out by the names, but it's because you're using like a magnifying glass or a lens to look into the data in more detail. So little cute name for that there. All right, well, we've just searched Google, found a data set that we found interesting, found the API link for it, and uploaded that into our project. The process for that would be the same for a WMS or for a map for an Esri map server or scene server or image server, the same thing as the feature server. The only difference with WMS is you just want to make sure from the create new layer that you select WMS here instead of Esri. But otherwise the process is the same. You're just pasting that URL into the box and adding it to your project. Some other types of data that we can add are images or vector. So let's do an image first, just so we can see what that looks like. And when I click that, it brings me to this applet again, except now it's set up for uploading an image or a PDF. And I have some data already preset here, ready to go. So I have this little floor plan. I'm going to load that in. And when you open a PDF, sometimes it has lots of extra stuff on it that you don't actually want in your project. Like maybe I only want this floor plan and I don't want these other floor plans included. And I definitely don't need this text. So what I can do is crop this before I even get started, and then I don't have to worry about that other junk. So I'm just gonna crop out the rest of this floor plan that I don't want. And then it's just gonna place it on the map. Now, obviously, this is very out of scale. You can see right now this building is spanning almost 3 city blocks, so far too large. But what you would do is you'd take it to your site and you would just adjust the size and the rotation until it matches the building that you are bringing in, or maybe it's a site survey, your parcel outline, whatever you need it to match. You can just adjust that size and rotation, and then you just save it. You can give it a different name or keep the PDF name, and just like the scene server or the feature server we uploaded, it will get added as a layer in my layer tree. The layers usually come in at the bottom, and then you can move them to wherever you want them to be in the list. So that is raster imagery being uploaded. And then the last type of data that I want to show is just uploading a vector data source. There are a couple of different kinds of vector data. So we'll look at both a GeoJSON and a shapefile. Oh no, I don't have a GeoJSON, sorry. We'll look at a shapefile and a CSV. The shapefile will always be formatted in this zip folder. You don't want to unzip the folder. The folder will have like 7 different files in it, and you need all of those. The way that shape works is it has, the polygons, and then it has other information in those other files in that zip directory that say, what projection it's using, other metadata that's included. So don't unzip that folder, just upload the whole dang zip to Giraffe. And it will load up that file for you. and it kind of zooms to that file's location. The shapefile I just uploaded are the Philadelphia neighborhood boundaries, and you can see as I sort of mouse over these, all of the different polygons in this file. But the way it uploaded, all of them are just white and there's no outline. So it's kind of hard to see what's going on. What's cool with the shapefile upload is you can actually pre-style it before you save it. And that style will then be saved into that file in your layer library. So the next time you add it to your project, you don't have to restyle it every time. It's going to save that styling for you. So I'm going to click on the style here, and I definitely want these colored by name. There's so many neighborhoods that we've sort of run out of colors. But the other thing that I want is to have an outline. And I actually want that outline to be a fixed color, just black. And maybe I don't actually want a color for the parcels themselves. I'm just going to make them white, but I'll make them a little bit transparent so that it's not overlaying too much on everything else. And then to differentiate, I can give them a label. So I'll just turn on labels, and then the label details, I'm going to want the name on there. So now I've got this really nice dynamic information. And when I save this, it's going to save that layer to my library with that exact styling on it already. The same thing would happen if you pre-filtered the data set. Anything that you do before you save that layer to your library, that is the default that you would see the next time you loaded it in. So here we go. We can zoom in and kind of see our information. Another thing to note about these layers that you're uploading is they're also queryable outside of Lens. So if I just right click on one of these shapes, I can see the information as I mouse over each one in my left-hand panel. So it's telling me, this shape ID was just 94, but I can see in the left-hand panel, this is Washington Square West, what the area is. It's just whatever data is saved in that specific data set. So different data sets will have different fields, but it's really useful to be able to see that information quickly with just, a quick right click of the mouse. I can also copy these shapes into my project if I wanted to. When I mouse over a shape, I get the option to create, and that copies that shape into my project, and now it is a giraffe editable geometry. So I can do anything I want with this. I can use the flow builder, I can apply a usage, I could start using this as my project boundary if I wanted to. So lots of useful things that you can do with those data sets once you load them in. And then the last kind of data that I want to show you is just that CSV file. So I'm also going to upload a vector and just browse for that. And I'm going to bring in my hospitals CSV. And what this does is, the way that the CSV upload works is it searches for an address. So your CSV file itself, which if I open this with Excel and show you what that file looks like. You'll see that it has this happens to be a data set of hospitals. It has the hospital name, but it has an address as a specific column. Best practice is to have the address, the city, and the state actually in columns labeled this way. So sometimes when you download sort of address or sets of data from like Zillow or wherever you're downloading them from, they're all formatted differently. So you want to make sure that your address column is labeled address, your city column is labeled city, state, zip code, just to make it very consistent so that when the Giraffe engine is searching for that address, it's searching for the right one. And then what it does is it just does basically what you do when you search the map. So if I was going to search the map for each of these addresses, Giraffe does that, and then it places a point at each one for you. And then you can do the same thing as we were before. You can style these points. So maybe I want each of these points to have a label, and I want to see that hospital name on each of these points. And maybe I want the radius, the size of that point to be larger. So I can make that bigger or smaller as I wish. I can change the color. Anything you can do with a normal polygon or line-based vector data, you can do the same thing with a point-based. And then I can just save this layer again, and it'll be added to my project. So that's kind of the process of either searching for data in the Giraffe layer library or going out into the big wide world and trying to find data that works for your project, and then loading it in and using that information to sort of inform your decisions. There's so much geospatial data that can inform what decisions you're making in your project. Wetlands overlays, flood zone overlays, contours, things like power line locations and other types of infrastructure that's important for things like data centers. Knowing what the zoning is obviously super helpful. So there's all kinds of information out there, and sometimes it's just a matter of finding it. What's great with Giraffe is as long as it's in a format that we work with, and we work with most of the most common formats, you can just load it into your project. So even if you've paid for a data source that, Giraffe doesn't have as part of our packages of different data that providers that we work with, if you've paid for that data and they give you an Esri feature server or they give you a shapefile, you can load that right in and start using it on your projects. So today, I hope that was really helpful for you. I hope you're sort of inspired to go look for data and information and really fill out your projects with all of the info that you might need. I think that is a good place to wrap for today. If you do think of something later on, if you have a question for us, you can just email me directly at holly@giraffe.build, HOLLY @giraffe.build, and I'd be happy to help. Yeah, and then this recording should be uploaded to YouTube in the next couple of days. So if you want to share it with a colleague or go back and look at something again, it'll be there for your use. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day, and happy almost Friday. Thanks again, all.